Think about this. You've used a public restroom more times than you could ever count. Malls, airports, schools, gas stations, restaurants, all of them different buildings, different countries, different decades of construction, and in almost every single one, the stall door does the exact same strange thing. Why do public toilet stall doors always have gaps? Not just a small crack, a visible gap at the top, a visible gap at the bottom, and often a sliver running down both sides where the door meets the frame. In the one room where you'd expect total privacy, the design almost seems to work against it. You're probably thinking, easy, it's just cheap construction. Nobody wanted to spend the extra money on a proper door, so we all got stuck with gaps. That feels true, mostly because it matches the mildly uncomfortable feeling every gap gives you. Except plenty of these buildings spend serious money everywhere else. Marble countertops, motion sensor faucets, heated hand dryers, sometimes even ambient music piped into the restroom itself. If cost-cutting was the real explanation, you'd expect the cheapest possible door too. Maybe thin plywood, or no lock at all. Instead, these stalls use thick, reinforced partitions, sturdy metal hinges, and heavy-duty latches. Somebody spent real money engineering a door that still, on purpose, doesn't reach the floor or the ceiling. And here's the part that makes it stranger. Your bathroom door at home reaches from floor to ceiling with zero gap, and it costs a fraction of what a commercial toilet partition costs. So if a private, fully enclosed door is both cheaper and more private, why would public buildings spend more money to build something that offers less privacy on purpose? To answer that, we actually have to go back much further than most people expect, all the way to ancient Rome. Roman public latrines were often long stone benches with a row of holes cut side by side. No partitions, no doors, no privacy at all. People sat shoulder to shoulder over a channel of flowing water underneath, and the entire design was built around one priority: keeping the space clean and the air moving, not shielding anyone from view. For most of human history since then, public toilets stayed somewhere on that spectrum. Functional first, private a distant second. The individual, semi-enclosed stall with a door is actually a fairly modern invention layered on top of a much older set of priorities. The specific style most people picture, the low partition with a gap at the top and bottom, has a real fingerprint attached to it. The architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. In the Larkin Administration Building, completed in Buffalo, New York in 1903, Wright designed restrooms using small, low partition doors instead of full floor-to-ceiling stalls. The building became hugely influential in American commercial architecture, and many of its ideas, including those small bathroom doors, went on to become a standard for business and public construction across the country. One architect's specific design choice, made over a century ago, is a direct ancestor of the exact gap you're looking at the next time you're standing in a stall. The first practical reason the gap survived and spread is simple. A fully sealed stall traps odor inside itself with nowhere to go. A public restroom already has more of a smell problem than any private bathroom does. Higher traffic, less frequent cleaning per use, more variables at once. A gap at the top and bottom allows air to actually circulate through the space instead of pooling inside a sealed box, which matters more in a public setting than almost anywhere else. Here's where things get interesting, and it's the reason building codes actually care about this detail. If a stall door reached the floor completely, nobody outside could tell if the person inside had lost consciousness, was injured, or was in medical distress, until someone forced the door open. A visible gap means another person, or staff, can glance down, see there's a problem, and get help immediately. Sometimes even pull someone out without having to break the door down at all. That single design detail turns a minor inconvenience into what's genuinely a safety feature, especially in schools, airports, and other high-traffic public spaces. The gap also does something less obvious. It makes certain kinds of bad behavior noticeably harder to get away with. Full privacy makes it easier to vandalize a stall unnoticed, use drugs unnoticed, or engage in other illicit activity unnoticed. A gap doesn't eliminate that risk completely, but it does make it visible enough. Feet, movement, sound, that other people in the room are far more likely to notice something is wrong. It's a small dent in privacy, deliberately traded for a layer of accountability a fully sealed room simply doesn't have. This isn't just theory either. In 2007, a sitting U.S. senator was arrested in a Minneapolis-St. Paul airport restroom, and the entire case turned on exactly this design detail. An undercover officer in the next stall noticed foot and hand movement under the gap, and interpreted it as a solicitation signal. The story became national news for weeks, and suddenly a piece of architecture nobody ever thought twice about was being described, in detail, on the evening news. A design feature meant to quietly discourage misconduct ended up, in one very public case, being the exact thing that exposed it. That's the trade-off in a single real headline. The gap that makes you feel slightly exposed is the same gap that makes it much harder to do something you shouldn't in there without somebody noticing. And underneath all of that, there's a purely mechanical reason baked into the hardware itself. Toilet partition doors don't sit inside a traditional door frame the way your bedroom door does, so there's nowhere to mount the strip of molding that normally seals a household door shut on all sides. On top of that, the hinges used on these partitions have their own built-in gap requirements. A standard surface-mounted partition hinge needs roughly 1/8 of an inch of clearance on the hinge side just to physically operate, and other hinge types need even more. Installers also rely on that same gap to compensate for real-world construction, since walls and floors are almost never perfectly square or perfectly level. And in stalls built for wheelchair accessibility, that bottom gap isn't just a byproduct anymore, it's a legal requirement. Accessibility codes call for a minimum clearance under the door specifically, so a wheelchair user has enough room to maneuver, which means for at least some stalls in every public restroom, the gap isn't an oversight at all. It's the law. Add in one more detail. Identical, universal-sized doors and partitions can be manufactured and installed without custom measuring every single restroom, which keeps costs down at scale. The exact same logic that gave the world a square pizza box instead of a round one. So what if public restrooms had gone the other way? Full floor-to-ceiling private stalls, like the ones you'll actually find in parts of Japan, where stronger cultural expectations around privacy shaped a completely different design standard. You'd get real privacy, but you'd also lose easy emergency visibility, lose some of that built-in deterrent against misconduct, lose the airflow advantage, and add real cost and complexity to manufacturing and installation at scale. It's not that the alternative is impossible. It clearly isn't. It's that it trades one set of problems for a different, more expensive set. Remember standing in that stall, feeling that small flicker of exposure every time you noticed the gap at your feet? It was never an accident, and it was never really about cutting corners. It was airflow, safety, accountability, legal accessibility, and manufacturing cost, all compressed into a few inches of empty space that a single architect's decision over 100 years ago helped turn into the global default. So next time you glance down and see that gap staring back at you, it's not a design failure, it's a dozen invisible decisions, agreeing that a little discomfort was worth the trade-off. You felt it every time. Now you know why.